Inside Series 0.5 Oppressors, Surpressed versus Surpassing, author Kubulai Bora, Övenberam Kubi Bobey. Section 0.5 Guidance to Surpass Oppressors. The worst nightmare for races would be if an unprivileged one would make it despite the suppression of white privileged ones. Why? Because this would prove the inferiority of white privileged people who claim own supremacy within their own measure of supremacy. Why? Because they had and stole majority of resources of others, they also suppressed others, but they would have still lost in their wicked attempt, while having the better environment to nourish their success. They would be inferior because unprivileged ones had a much worse environment. It was made to destroy their potential and their success, but one made it through despite. In their formula of environment plus genes, only genes would be left over. They would be inferior, unprivileged ones superior. So they do all to suppress forcefully and deny for their superiority claims. Suppression is what someone would focus on with their rest to uphold their forced superiority to do more and more damage. As they have current spiritual signs as their inner belief, while they want to feed their privilege in contrast to others. Then they seek for a feeling of superiority through might and standing, as well as a feeling of being served, praised, and succumbed towards themselves. Independent winning of unprivileged people would be impossible according to spiritual science if you take inferiority of races and genes for granted, that many try to prove with wicked science, which I see as statistical nonsense. See later Manual 5 of Inner and Sight. Your genes were inferior. Your environment is bad. White guys are suppressing and exploiting who are claimed as superior genetically and have the better environment. So consequently, you would have no chance to win against them yourself, but need that superior white savior who lures with charity and help and then suppresses victims more, for example, with exploitation through privatization and forcing debts on someone. See and inform yourself about microcredits with absurdly high interest rates, exploitation in fishing industry as selling overly high-priced equipment to force free labor over a long time and undervalue the labor done and products given. Farming industry, same as fishing industry, sought genetically manipulated plants that wither faster and need more pesticides, where plants and pesticides need to be paid afterwards constantly, even so it is lower in quality than the variety of original local plants. Charity for the exchange of privatization, legal occupation of resources, or to say that more blatantly, neo-colonization. False saviors force victims to sell out natural resources very cheaply and then possibly give the responsibility for exploitation and poverty to the leaders of exploited countries, whom they also raise in politics if they cooperate corruptly with them in exchange for their lures. They may even suppress responsible politicians if they don't do corruption. These are all things that need to be investigated, analyzed, and clarified. Facts were already shown, but they are rarely seen as part of the dogma of the kingdom of flesh that is deeply rooted in current spiritual science and an economy that bases itself on colonialism. Wicked economy of exploitation bases on wicked pseudoscience of the kingdom of flesh according to ancient wisdom. They act inferior and unskillful according to ancient wisdom, because they allow themselves brutal, forceful corruption through the claim and lie of their own superiority within suppression of good as well. If you believe in your inferiority, your bad environment, you needing a white savior, and that there were no other variables to use to win, you put yourself in an hopeless situation where you don't act yourself but follow these who exploit you. If you follow oppressors, you need to sell your friends and morals out to gain some piece of the cake that they stole from your people. As such, you become a betrayer to your kind and kin, to adapt to corruption and gain from oppressors, be it through claiming your own home nation and your own people as evil, sex-driven, corrupt, bad, stupid, the white savior as the one who is much better and so good, while you ignore all the wickedness they do on cost of the rest of humanity and the well-being of Earth, while they depict themselves as the heroes and saviors to exploit and oppress even more, while they stir up hate of the suppressed ones against each other. But according to ancient wisdom, it is possible to struggle and surpass oppressors, even as they claim themselves as superior, with manipulation, suppression, and lies. Don't make their lies of your inferiority into your reality. Struggle through and win despite, be it as an suppressed country or as an individual within a wealthy Western country where the population is suppressing you. And for that, you may want to use better insight instead of hopelessness. More insight that they can't use themselves. Current spiritual science would let you rather ignore the message of the heart that are described in ancient wisdom, but this all is still super knowledge. There is no foundation to exclude something beyond environment and genes in science. As such, the denial of more than just genes and environment, like the guidance of the heart and decisions, are not a truth that can be claimed, nor a better truth. In the end, spiritual science is used for pseudo-rationalization, which is used to justify their wrongdoings within dogma as superior but not responsible. 1. No responsibility. If you are genetically determined and can only learn through your environment, then you have no responsibility, as you have no free will nor free decisions. 2. Lie of determined superiority. If you were claimed superior through the flesh, you would have won against others because you would have been superior. But all the wrongs, unskillfulness, that were done to gain superiority are claimed without own responsibility. Because they claim themselves as superior, they would be allowed to act as such while they ignore that their actions are inferior. These two aspects of denial and claim are the logical conclusion of today's spiritual science. It is a free ticket for many to just act as they want, as long as they don't get consequences through jurisdiction. The pain and suffering of others can be ignored as well as such, because they were just inferior. But they don't get the dominance, aggression, exploitation, destruction, misusing of someone being desperate who got desperate because of colonization and discrimination has nothing to do with superiority, but just with pure brutality, being amoral, asocial and corrupt. It is inferiority that is claimed superior. It is not intelligence to misuse privilege, which is a common misconception in white privileged society. If someone was unprivileged, like a brown Turkish man in Germany, says something correct and right in Germany, it is oftentimes claimed as wrong, even if it is right. Just because they take their lies as truth does not make them intelligent or smart. It just makes them misuse privilege with being spiritually retarded. While they destroy the world with their water depletion of other countries, for the mass animal industry in Germany, for the pleasure of the Western white privileged ones, it is fine that others starve and have no water. While they claim themselves as good and suppress others, who could really do good, as they feel threatened in their attempt to lie about supremacy. I can show with clarity that there is a true rational basis of the guidance through within, see Manual 1, as such that it can also be used practically. As it was described in the Brahmajala Sutta, the supreme net, or teaching is not, to find peace it is fine to detach of, but not to deny, superknowledge. This does not mean to deny superknowledge that is clearly identified, as denial is one of the aspects of rest. I prefer ancient wisdom in comparison to foolish wisdom of the flesh, see Gospel of Mary. But I won't go deeper into this rabbit hole here. This is a foreshadowing of something that may follow later. Add-on to the Insight Series 0.5 Cycle of Oppression Guiding 0. People do not know of aspects of life. Now they can take either the right or fine path, or not one that is not fine or right. Here I will dive into the wrong path they chose, and how they lure others into the wrong path. 1. They adapt to a system made by exploitators and oppressors. For this adaptation they give up their own way and do what is asked of them, even if such is wrong. What such wrongs are can be, for example, understood by overlapping teachings of mine. They overlap teachings. For example, they agree on exploiting others and to racist or anti-Christ agendas like of determinism and intellectual inferiority. 2. As such, they act now to gain nourishment by such adaptation to a wrong path, and for such nourishment they also sell out more of their values. 3. By such they now gain position, and by such they claim superiority that they do not have, and claim now to live by positions they have. And then this goes back to not knowing, to choose the wrong path. They adapt while doing this to the resources and not to the inside, also to corruptions. This goes back to 1. And to 2, they sell out to gain more nourishment. And 3, by such gaining positions, with such they claim to be right even if they are not. And they go back to 2. They now try to make others act as well like them and distribute nourishment and their own resources for the ranks to do. 3. As this loose distribution and control of resources does not work out to lead others to corruption, they now fight also unfairly and segregate who do not adapt to their corrupt path. 0. How can this be done better? Now they claim to be right still despite to be wrong. But if you go through all this despite, their force is seen as what it is, and you do the right. So the question is how to make it through. These steps can be seen and then can be gone through, and just not caring and doing despite. What they may help to go on with the path you do. 0. Seek to do the right whatever this may is. See overlap teachings about what seeking is. 1. Seek to go on by your norms and values instead to adapt to the wrong outside. 2. Seek to see your privilege as being unprivileged and discriminated. As they discriminate you, you are less in risk of corruption by wrong privilege that they corrupt you with. 3. Seek to create further on even if they suppress you, and as such create something fantastic and beyond what they can ever could in their theme. You do by investing more time in your work more easily as they try to reject you until it is big enough that they cannot do it themselves, and then publish it to gain positions by the right of responsibility of your work to change the world accordingly for the better. This is how you go on when they try to suppress you.